Greetings, dear saints. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, praise the Lord. Yeah, it's always a privilege to be able to have this time of fellowship with you. And this is really a kind of a unique opportunity in this particular session that we have just the serving saints, but the serving saints with all the age groups meeting together. And I think that's just the fact that we can come together like this is in itself a real blessing. And I saw the number before, over 270. And of course, in a number of places, it's not just one person. So we probably have over 300 or maybe 350 saints, all with this one burden, all with this same burden to raise up the next generation for the Lord. And that is a glorious thing, that there are so many saints in the churches in your area with this burden. And I wanted to take a few minutes at the beginning to present something of what Brother Lee called the one piece. And I know that many of you may have heard bits and pieces here and there about this, but I would like to say something about this. But before I get into this, I want to mention this, saints. Really, we are in a battle. We are in a battle. I think maybe we probably all know this, but I just want to highlight this. Yes, there is the battle between God and Satan. There is this battle, and we see this in the scriptures from the first chapter of the Bible until almost the last chapter in the Bible. Praise the Lord. He gets dealt with. Eventually, he gets dealt with, the enemy. But even before you read the second verse in the Bible, we encounter the battle in the universe. But dear saints, this battle is focused always on the next generation of God's people. It's always this way. And I do believe in past times, I have mentioned to you at least one time, maybe every time, I don't recall, this picture that we have in Exodus 1 of God's people there in Egypt, right? Which typifies the bondage of the world. And they are there under the tyranny of Pharaoh, which of course symbolizes that they're under Satan's control, the authority of darkness. And God has his purpose and his economy. God has his purpose and his economy. And at the end of Exodus, what do you see there? You see God's building with God's glory. And the enemy will do anything to interrupt that. He probably knows by now he cannot stop that. But he will do anything to interrupt, hinder, slow down. But what do you see in Exodus 1? What are his tactics? His tactics are one strategy toward the older generation and another strategy toward the younger. Oh, and I in order to avoid some of his strategy, an alert just came up on my computer that I'm not plugged in, and I would probably lose you in the middle of my sharing. So bear with me just one moment. Just one moment. I'll just keep talking as I'm doing this here. But saints, the enemy focuses his strategy on the younger generation, and I think many of us here actually. I know we shouldn't do this, but I just couldn't help it. While we were singing the hymn, I did a little scrolling, so I saw some of you that I know some from different places in the States, some from Puerto Rico. And yeah, I see you there. These grew up among us. These grew up among us. And actually, even I grew up among us. I came to the Lord's recovery when I was only 14 years old. And so from our history, we can see that the enemy has his strategy to the children and the young people. And I would say in the past, we always would talk about how the enemy fights against the young people and his strategy there, and the intensity of the world. But saints, these days, you can see Satan's strategy, particularly toward our children. It is insidious. It is intense. And so it requires all of us to rise up, to labor over the next generation. You know, in Genesis 2, man's charge in the garden is to work it and to keep it. And that's in the recovery version. Uses these words: to work it and to keep it. I believe in the King James it says to till it and to guard it. And probably we will say something about these words. This is Genesis 2:15. Maybe in the Lord's Day, when we fellowship more with the parents. But even among us here, there are many parents. So I'd like to bring this out. To what is it to till and to guard? To till and to guard. You know, of course, there, strictly speaking, it's talking about the garden. But you have to see, the garden is the ground. You're tilling the ground in the garden, and that typifies the human heart. And so the children of God's people are first spoken of or introduced in Genesis chapter 1, in verse 28, when man is charged to be fruitful and to multiply and replenish the earth and even conquer it. How are they supposed to subdue the earth and conquer it? Actually, it's through their following generations. But then in chapter 2 is this charge: to till and to guard, to work it and to keep it. And I would say, dear saints, that whether we're in the role of a serving one or in the role of a parent, this is a great part of our job, to till the hearts of the next generation and to guard their hearts and to guard their hearts. Actually, I'd like to read a little bit from the footnotes in our recovery version for these two words, for tilling, or the word work, to work it. It says, man's working the ground was that life, especially the tree of life, might grow for the fulfillment of the first aspect of God's purpose, to express God in his image. The ground typifies the human heart, into which Christ, as the seed of the tree of life, is sown. To work the ground signifies to loosen and break up our hard heart and to open our heart to the heavens, that the Spirit as the rain may descend for the growth of Christ as the tree of life within us. Of course, it is the goal of the children's meeting to bring every child eventually to Christ, to salvation, right? What is that in this picture? That they would be open to receive the rain, the Spirit as the rain. But saints, that job doesn't start when they go to the pre-K level or the kindergarten or first grade level. That job starts when they enter into our home. When they actually, to some extent, that job starts when they're in the womb. We need, I think it's documented that you could sing to the children in the womb. You can speak to them. It has some positive effect on them. And we know from the story of Samson and his birth, the consecration before birth is very important. Mom and dad's consecration starts from conception, not from birth. Anyway, the point is, as parents, a great part of our job is to prepare the hearts of the children, prepare their hearts. And we may not realize, many parents may not realize that even when their child is 1.5 years old, 2, 2.5, and 3, you're doing something to till the ground for one day, this little vessel to receive the rain from heaven. And saints, I mentioned we're in a battle, and from our past history, I think everywhere in the country, everywhere is the same. We're not satisfied with our track record. We have many children. Actually, we have children who grow up among us, who are young adults now, who are married couples now. They grew up among us 20, 30 years ago. Why are they not with us today? Why are some of the ones in their 20s even? Why are even some of the teenagers not happy to be with us today? It has a lot to do with their hearts. And yes, there are many factors. There's no one answer. But one thing we have realized is that if we start this labor of tilling the ground earlier, when they are the children, and even when they're toddlers, even as toddlers, there's more hope. There's more hope that their hearts will be for the Lord later on. And that's the tilling part. That's the tilling part. Listen to this about the guarding or the keeping. This is note 15:3 in Genesis chapter 2. To keep or to guard. This is to protect the garden from God's enemy, that the second aspect of God's purpose might be fulfilled. That is, to deal with Satan by God's authority. You realize, saints, this is talking about dominion. Dominion. We need to work the ground that God, as the tree of life, might enter into us. We also need to keep the ground, leaving no opening for Satan as the tree of knowledge. So, saints, when we apply this to the hearts of the children, I think it's easy to see. On the positive side, as parents, we need to be working on their hearts, opening their heart, gaining their hearts. On the negative side, we need to protect them, put a hedge around them. Actually, this word keep or guard in the Hebrew language it also means to put a hedge around, as maybe they would to put with thorns around, or maybe today the farmers would put up barbed wire, around a property. That's to put a hedge. And we need to be doing that with our children, with our younger generation. But the point is, saints, that this work doesn't start even when they're in elementary school. Surely it doesn't start when they're teenagers. And one reason why our attrition rate may be so high might be because we didn't have this view of the one piece, that those serving in high school and with the older young people, with the college students, maybe we waited a little bit too long to engage these little vessels, to be concerned about them. Maybe we took for granted, oh, they're just they're just little, they're young and but actually saints, actually, all these age groups, from the children to the teenagers, university students, this is the word Brother Lee used, one piece. They are all related together as one piece. Okay, I'd like to read you this this quotation. I know many of you have heard this already, but there might be some that this is brand new to. This was in 1983 in a message to some saints in Anaheim. Brother Lee made this statement. He said, "The children's meeting, the young people's work, and the gospel work on the college campuses are all related as one work." Actually, I'm reading you from the Collected Works of Witness Lee, 1983, volume 3. And in the message here, it says all related as one work. But actually, if you go back and listen to the spoken message, he didn't use the word work. This word was interpreted, right? That was interpreted because the editors thought people might not understand what the one piece means. But if you listen to the spoken message, he said it's just one piece. It's just one piece. In the past, we've often talked about a pipeline, like a pipe that the children, as the water, run through segment after segment of the church life. Of course, they start in their family, and of course that never ends. That part never ends. But they're first in the family, but then they come to the children's meeting, and they're in the children's meeting under the shepherding of many of the teachers who we have here, the serving ones, for a number of years, 6 or 7 years. Then they move on to the young people's work, and in some places that means 2 segments: the junior high or middle school, and then the high schoolers. Of course, in many places, those are all together. So that's 1 segment or 2. But then they move on, and there's the college campus work. And in many places, I would say even probably most places, these groups of saints serving in these segments are all different, and practically very understandable, because we need to, our time is limited, and not only so, the Lord's leading. We have to honor the Lord's leading, and we all serve, according to 2 Corinthians 10, under the God of measure. So he leads us. He might lead me to focus on the children for a number of years, but he might lead you to focus on the college students for some time, and that's wonderful. But actually, I was struck with these verses just this week for the first time in a particular way, and those are the verses that we read from 1 Corinthians chapter 12. I like to read this again. We read 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 7. It says here, "And there are distinctions of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are distinctions of ministries, yet the same Lord. Some of you have the ministry to the children. Praise the Lord. Some have the ministry to the campus, to college students. Praise the Lord. But it's the same Spirit. And there are distinctions of operations, but the same God who operates all things in all. But to each one is given the manifestation of the Spirit for what is profitable." And then the other verse that we had from Corinthians is in chapter 14, verse 12. "Seek that you may excel for the building up of the church." Actually, saints, we may have the ministry to the children, but ultimately, what is that for? It's for the building of the church. I may serve the teenagers, but what is that for? It's not to build up a young people's work. It's to build up the church. It's to work on this little vessel at this stage in their life, so that they might reach that goal. And so they may go on in their years in college to be under other serving ones. But actually, we're all laboring for the same one goal. Brother Lee puts it this way. We have this in the book, Raising Up the Next Generation for the Church Life. We want to produce beings of the New Jerusalem. That's actually what we're doing. So whether you serve on nursery, children, junior high, high school, college, young adults, we all have one goal: to produce beings of the New Jerusalem. And now, what does this look like? Because I know that actually all the saints agree. All the saints agree when we present this. It sounds very logical. We all love the Lord. We all love the church. We respect the ministry. We say, Brother Lee said that. Oh, we agree. Amen. One piece. But I serve here, and you serve there. And saints, again, it's very good and even very practical that you would serve either with the children or in some area, whatever area of service the Lord has led you to. And even to focus your whole being, even to seek to excel in that service, to do it better this year than last year. That should be our heart. But what we don't want is that any of us would be myopic. Myopic, it means nearsighted, that we only see what's in front of us. This is very clear, but we can't see the future. We can't see what's down the road. So we can't see it. We don't even pray for it. Not to say we don't cooperate and we don't support. We don't see it. It seems like we have the capacity only to serve our little section here. Now, again, please do not misunderstand. We treasure everyone's service, and we respect the calling that the Lord has for every one of us. We have to be faithful to our calling. But what we hope is that there will be a long-term and broad view of all the services in the church life. Actually, to see this in a proper way, what I hope that we see is not the place of all these services. What I hope that we see is the church life. Because in every stage, these young ones are in the church life. They should have a sense, I'm home in the church. I belong. I belong as a child. I belong as a teenager. I belong as a college student. I belong as a young adult. Regardless of where I am in life, there's a place for me here. So saints, actually, the more we've gotten into this matter of the so-called one piece, we realize that what we need is a one-piece church life. What we need is a church life where everyone belongs and everyone is growing at their measure, at whatever stage. And we are for that. And we are supporting that, at least by our prayers, at the very least by our prayers, but maybe more than through our prayers. Maybe some of the saints serving with the children want to invite those serving with the college students just to have fellowship, just to be together, not to even with no agenda. So not to plan anything particularly, but just to know one another. Oh, I tell you, those under our shepherding care will benefit from such contact in the church life. If the church life is healthy wherever we are, if there's an atmosphere of love wherever we are, oh, I tell you, that will affect our next generation. That will affect our next generation. They will be inspired. They will be inspired to want to be like the people in the church. And I know of cases, saints, a couple just came to mind, but one particular one where we had a young person there, grew up among us, but their family situation was complicated. And there was not a normal church life in this child's home growing up. But this little one had an uncle who was fully in the church life. And from the time that boy was at the latest in 4th grade, his uncle would bring him. And he was involved with that. He got saved in the children's meeting, went through the young people's meetings and conferences and so on. But I tell you, when he was 18, he disappeared. He disappeared for 8 years. Can you imagine? For 8 years. I would see him every now and again, and we, you know, how in the church life and through family connections, we run into each other and so on. But 8 years later, I remember he showed up in a young people's meeting. And I was just, firstly, I couldn't believe that was him. I was so happy to see him. As soon as the meeting was over, he came over to me and we started to talk. Eventually we stayed for about an hour. Everyone left the meeting hall. Just the two of us were there. And the hurt, the pain, hearing his story of what he passed through in those 8 years. But do you know what brought him back, since? What brought him back was he remembered the taste of the love in the church life. From the time he was a boy through his teenage years, yes, even he wasn't interested in the meetings and here and there, and he's one who got in trouble every now and again, but he was in the homes of the saints. He was with his uncle. He was in the junior high and high school years, in the homes of the serving saints. Oh, I tell you, we didn't realize how the infusion, and that love brought him back. He's a real prodigal. And I don't want to say too much in detail, but this one is one of the leading ones in one of the churches on the East Coast today. And praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I do believe that he is a product of a kind of one-piece church life in the homes of the saints. In the homes of the saints. Saints, that because this labor does not start in the children's meeting. It starts in the homes, in the families, it starts in the families. Then you could realize that we could affect one another's children in such a positive way, And I know in the last 2 years, it's been a great challenge to have the kind of social aspect of the church and the kind of blending, but we're coming out of that now. And I would say, from my observation, the ones who have been affected the most are the children, meaning the children and even teenagers and the young people, and the young moms, from my observation. But the enemy has taken advantage of this situation to affect our children, our next generation. We need to counter that. And I would say it's not merely through meetings, but through the homes of the saints. through the homes and touching the families, You know, during these 2 years at different times, this is an experience we've had here in New York City, but also I've heard this in various places, that a couple of times during the year, the serving saints of the children had this leading to prepare some little gifts for the children. So even though the children were not coming together, the serving saints went to visit every single child in the church, in their home. And in some cases, the parents are not our brothers and sisters in the church life. Just like this experience I just told you, he was brought by his uncle. And we have cases like this where they're brought by their grandmother, they're brought by their neighbor, they're brought by their uncle or aunt. But anyway, the serving saints had this leading. And today, actually in New York City, I may have mentioned this before, we have 9 halls or nine districts spread throughout the city. And the saints in each hall had this kind of burden and carried this out both for the children and for all the young people, including the young people who had not been coming to the meeting before the lockdown, but just to reach out and say hello. Oh, I tell you, saints, just those little visits, I can't tell you how much was accomplished. But my hope is that now, as we're normalizing and saints are a little more in person and so on, I hope we would not lose that benefit of visitation. Visitation is really a great way to work out the one-piece church life. Because, saints, it brings in an atmosphere. It brings in an atmosphere of inclusion, an atmosphere that somebody noticed me. I'm on someone's heart. I'm not just on someone's list. I'm on someone's heart because a human being showed up at my door. So saints, even though these last 2 years have been quite challenging, quite a number of things that are very positive have come out. And this is the way it is with the Lord. This is the way it is. He turns everything into a blessing. And all things do work together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. I think we can apply this even here. So, and one of these points is this matter of the visitation. And I hope that more saints, more of the serving saints would practice this, to get into the homes, not only of the young people, but even of the children. I tell you, in the past, we only talked about this. And I confess this, even here where I am, we would talk about this and visitation and so on. But during this period of time, the saints were mobilized and led to actually work this out. So anyway, I just leave that with you. I guess I'm just giving a testimony. I'm really just giving a testimony, and however the Lord would lead. But saints, it makes a difference to make that human connection in someone's home, and even as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, there are some children that their parents are not in the church life, and this gave the saints the opportunity to meet the parents and maybe to have the first genuine conversation with one of the parents of this child. So there are certainly opportunities in the gospel. And if you recall, I think I've mentioned this to you before, Brother Lee, his view was this. He said this: the children are. He used this phrase: the children are a big gospel. Actually, that's not how you'll find it written in the book, because that's not proper English. So that was edited some. But when he said it, he said this: the children are a big gospel. Our second generation, our children, even our junior hires and high schoolers, are or could be the biggest source of increase in the church. But that doesn't just happen, especially for the children. That takes the mobilization of the serving saints for visitation and for going out, saints, for going out. But I tell you, those who go out to sow we are going to reap with joy. It's a principle. It's a principle. And wherever we've practiced this, we see the fruit. We see the fruit. So anyway, I hope maybe I've been able to paint a little picture of a kind of the one-piece church life, the one-piece church life. But saints, for the serving ones with the young people, and we'll say a little bit more about this in actually in both sessions tomorrow, in the first session tomorrow morning, and particularly Saturday night is related to the shepherding of the young people. But I would say this, saints, that the main thing, or the first thing that we need to be concerned about with our young people is to really be before the Lord, how to help our young people love the Lord, just to love the Lord. And you know, we have this hymn, number 40 in our hymn book, and this is sung most often in the Lord's table meeting. But there's one stanza, I believe it's the last one. It goes something like this. Well, I better look it up, because just as I'm saying it, I lost it. That happens sometimes, you know. But hymn 40, it talks about each heart is rekindled with fire from above. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with this? Yeah, let me read this. We praise thee again. We are filled with thy love, and each heart is rekindled with fire from above. And we've had some fellowship in the church here most recently, that we just feel it. The stage of the church life that we're in today is a stage of rekindling. We need a lot of things to be rekindled. Our services, our meeting life, just lots of areas in the church life. But the number one thing that needs to be rekindled is our love for him. Our love for the Lord has to be rekindled. And saints, I am so concerned that as we come back together for the in-person meetings, and we're considering all the services with the children, the young people, and all the practical services, I do hope that none of us would miss aim or miss the priority, and that none of us would become overwhelmed with the practical things. I do hope that firstly, our hearts would be rekindled in our love for the Lord, so that all our service for the Lord, according to Revelation chapter 2, would be the first works, something issuing out from the first love. It's very possible that the things of these couple of years have worked on us, kind of worn us out, and our love for the Lord could have waned. Actually, this is exactly what the Lord prophesies in Matthew 24, verse 12, where he says, because lawlessness is multiplied, the love of the many will grow cold. The King James Version says will wax cold. And when the Lord says the love of the many, he's not talking about the general population. He's talking about his people. If you look in the Recovery Version, you will see a cross-reference, not a footnote, but where the Lord says the love of the many will grow cold. The cross-reference is to Revelation chapter 2 regarding the first love. So the Lord points out there that as we get closer to the end of the age, because of lawlessness, and lawlessness has been rampant in these years, and even today, things, whether it's on a small scale, local scale, global scale, we see lawlessness, and unconsciously that could wear us out. That could cause us to lose our faith, or if not to lose our faith, but that the faith level would go down. And faith and love are companions. They go down, they go up together. Saints, we need to fan into flame the gift of God that is within us. We have a spirit of power and we have a spirit of love. We need to fan that spirit into flame. And we need to exercise our new heart and our new spirit so that we might be burning in spirit, serving the Lord. But saints, as we come back together and pick up the burdens, and in some of the places, in some of the services, we really need to do a kind of recovery work. It seems like we lost some ground, and I can just, to be very honest with you, and in our place here, we realized the young boys, we lost them very early on when we went to the online meetings, the junior high school boys, even some of the college brothers. And so there's a recovery work we have to do some remedial work. Yes. But before touching anything, saints, I would say, I'm not concerned for them. Firstly, I'm concerned for us all who are serving, maybe, and I think I'll stop my fellowship here with this point, but I'd like to recommend this hymn to you. This hymn, 788. I like to use the hymn, the tune of 437, captivated by thy beauty. Hast thou heard him, seen him, known him? I like to substitute that tune for this song. But this hymn is about telling Jesus all, about having a running conversation with the Lord, and just speaking to him. And it talks about talking to him in the morning, in our day, and in the evening. But I want to highlight the third verse. Okay, it says, "Then as hour by hour glides by thee, thou will blessed guidance know, thine own burdens being lightened, thou canst bear another's woe. Thou canst help the weak ones onward. Thou canst raise up those that fall. And this is what I want to highlight, the last two lines. But remember, while thou servest, while you're serving, still tell Jesus, tell him all. So don't forget to get a supply, saints. Don't forget to take care of your own supply. This is very important, that all of us would be in the freshness of our consecration and our love for the Lord. So maybe, brothers, I think maybe I'll just stop here and turn the meeting back to you all, and however you want to proceed.
Praise the Lord. Amen, Brother Ricky. Thank you for sharing. I think, saints, at this time would like to open it up, like we mentioned at the beginning of the time. If there's an overflow, there's a feeling within you to respond to the speaking, please use the raise your hand function, and that way we can have a proper order to overflow. The other thing, that if there's a question, feel free to raise it at this time. And while that's taking place, Brother Ricky, I wonder if you can have a little bit of fellowship or feeling regarding of how we should, or how we could, maybe those of us who are parents or serving with the young people, how could we bring up or take care of them regarding what's going on today in the world situation? Many of our young people are very attuned to the news, social media, and they hear these things. And how do we bring it up in a good way without being political, without taking sides, in a way of life? I don't know if you have something you can share to us along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Mauricio, are you making reference to the conflict in Europe now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Saints, I would recommend for maybe some of you have seen it, but the leading ones in the church in Moscow actually wrote something to the churches there that would be very good for us to look at. I'm sure that some of the leading brothers have received that note, and but anyway, I think that letter includes something of what I think I would say. Yes, it's important that when we're talking to our children about these things, that we avoid taking sides. I think I would start with Daniel chapter 2. In Daniel 2 is the story of the image. We I think many of our young people have probably heard about this, because we have conferences on some of these inspiring stories in the Old Testament, and often we talk about Daniel, and of course we're emphasize his consecration, separation from the world, his love for the word, his matter of prayer, and all those. But actually, here's an opportunity for us to apply the interpretation of the dream, and with the human government, that image with the head of gold, and the arms, and the of silver, and the loins of bronze, and then iron legs, and then the feet of iron and clay. And I think it's good to let them know that we are right here at this time of the iron and the clay, where there's democracy and totalitarianism are there. It doesn't stick, and even to say something like this, can you imagine that a situation like this was prophesied in the Bible? And so the point is to show them that all this is under the Lord's sovereignty. Now, it's not so easy. It's not so easy when we see the pictures of the toll that it's taking, and human life is lost, and there's always be the question, oh, if God is so good, why does he allow these things, and so on. So I'm not sure I have a good answer there. That really depends on the situation with each child. But overall, the point is that everything is working for God's purpose, and these things were spoken of, even prophesied that long ago, and to show that human government in every manifestation is against God, and that's what that picture shows us. Eventually, the consummation of all that is against God. But the verse that the brothers in that letter emphasize is this verse, which I believe is in Daniel 4. The heavens do rule. The heavens do rule, and it might be good to even say something about how, in the case that we're talking now about Russia and Ukraine, to talk about the Lord's move there, and how when the Soviet Union collapsed, the way for the gospel opened up. We may have saints among us in this meeting who served there or who have visited there, and it might be a good opportunity to put a kind of a face to the story and kind of humanize it, that there are saints that are have been there. And it's also good to know to let them know some of the reports that we're receiving. And I do believe some of you as well have been getting reports in these couple of days of our saints making their way to safety, and some are trying actually to leave the country and so on, so that we could pray, join them in prayer, so that the doubting or the questions can be channeled toward prayers of faith, and the kind of realization that this is not just something happening far away, but rather this is our family in Christ, some of them, and they're passing through this, and we just need to pray for them and for their safety. So it could turn into something very positive.
Amen. Brother William from Plano.
Okay, amen. If I may, since we are talking about this situation, but I'm sure some of serving saints has received an email regarding a writing by Brother Watchman Nee. The title is the World Wars and the Churches. If I may send this email to Brother James Little, and it is up to the discretion of the brother whether all the saints would like to receive that. It's in volume 45, page, I think it's chapter 7, page 17. But I can send it to Brother James, and then we can go from there. Amen.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. What the brother is referring to is some of Brother Nee's fellowship of how we should see this from the Christian perspective, from the view of God's economy, when there are the conflicts in the international level.
Amen, saints. Happy to be here tonight with Brother Ricky and all the saints. I just wanted to go ahead and piggyback a little bit from your question, Mauricio, regarding the situation right now between Ukraine and Russia. But in addition to that, we are having a battle, and I know maybe Brother Ricky is going to address that a little bit more during the weekend. But how can we prepare our college students? You know, they are soon going to enter into corporate America, you know, and we, the middle age, you know, the ones that are working with corporate America, we can see the inclusion, the laws changing, you know, all the movements. How can we prepare our young people to stay strong? Of course, you know, if we say something in our jobs, we can get fired. But to be strong without despising people, loving people like the Lord loved them, but at the same time be strong, because this is, me as a mother, I have had my challenges having these type of conversations with my own kids who grew up in the church life and love the Lord, because they tend to take a lot of sides. So how can we help to strengthen our young people, even our children, in a way that they can be strong and be ready to manage all the pressure that we are all having right now? And, you know, this is a younger generation. So I think we've been through a lot. I think that at this point we can manage it, but it's going to be very difficult. And this is the future of our recovery. Amen. Thanks.
Amen. Charito, we will address some of these things, maybe in an indirect way. Particularly tomorrow evening, we have this one point about having practical talks with the young people, or with our children, practical talks. And this is what you're referring to, is something that on one hand does have to take place in the home. It starts in the home. But also can take place with the serving saints and the young people. I remember, just as a way of a testimony, some years ago. Well, this is back in the 90s. This is back in the 90s when I was serving with the young people more directly, you know, locally on a week-to-week basis. And before our Saturday evening young people's meeting, we had group meetings, and my wife and I had a group in our home that started with 2 young people. Eventually, it grew over a couple of years. We were having about 20 young people in our home for a group meeting, and then dinner together before going to the official young people's meeting. And I had this leading, not every week, but I had this leading now and again over dinner to bring up an issue of the week and something, you know, in the world scene, or maybe locally, national. If it were tomorrow, I would bring up this conflict with the Ukraine, with Russia and Ukraine, and I wanted to find out. I put it this way: what are people at school saying? I didn't ask them for their opinions. I said, but you would always get their opinions. But just to, on one hand, know them more and have them speak, but also to let them know that it's okay to talk about these things in a certain setting. It can be constructive, and because they talk about this with their teachers, they talk about themselves. But I know that if we don't initiate this, they would think I have no interest. So I wouldn't, they wouldn't talk about this in front of me. But I'd like to let them know we can talk about things. And are we going to convince them or equip them, or I don't know. But at least we can have conversations. And also, eventually we have to trust the deposit that we've put in them since, they were in the womb as an infant. But we have to trust the deposit. So, but something that we will talk about, especially Saturday evening, Lord's Day morning, is the matter of gaining their hearts as children and as teenagers, gaining their hearts. If we have their heart, then we can talk about things, argue about things, and it won't affect our relationship with them. If we don't have their heart, then it really becomes two sides, us and them. And so we want to avoid that. We want to avoid that. That's why the fellowship I mentioned earlier about tilling the ground is very important. And so, oh yes, I meant to say this sentence. I want to add this now. And I will repeat this sometime over the weekend, that these two things, to till and to guard, match the two aspects of God's eternal purpose. The tilling is for the life side, the image side, and the guarding or the keeping is the dominion side. So some of our parents may think, oh, God's eternal purpose is so lofty and deep, and I don't even know how to talk about that. But actually, we should be applying God's eternal purpose at home with our 2-year-old, our 4-year-old, our children, to till and to guard, to till and to guard.
Amen. There's a question in the chat, Brother Ricky. How do we get more saints to participate in service? Oftentimes the same saints are involved in serving. I guess it implies through the entire one piece. It's the same saints. So how do we get more saints to enter in and participate?
Yes. Yeah, I wish I knew. Yeah, then I would apply that here. So, well, sorry, I'm being just a little facetious. We don't have the full answers, but I would say this has a lot to do with the leading ones in our localities. For the leading ones to bring this burden to the church, rather than for you or I to recruit for my service. So maybe I'm serving with the children and we need more serving ones. So maybe I don't think the way is to look around and just start recruiting people. I think the way may be to, of course, well, I should say, the Lord might lead us toward one or two in that way. If it's the Lord's leading, very good. But maybe a burden like this can be brought to the elders, to the leading ones. And then the leading ones may bring this burden to the prayer meeting, to the church prayer meeting. And we pray for a month. Lord, we need more serving ones in level 1 in the children. Lord, burden more saints, burden more parents. Lord, we need more serving ones with the junior high boys. And we beseech the Lord of the harvest to thrust out workers. I have no doubt that within that 1 month, the Lord would motivate some to come forward, would motivate some to would operate in some. Even some, they walked into that prayer meeting, not even a thought about serving the children. But they leave that meeting with something within them that bothers them, and they don't know what to do with it, maybe even deny it. Then they come the next Tuesday or Wednesday to the prayer meeting, and there's this church is praying again, and you enter into the church's burden, and they can't escape. And that's the Lord's initiation. The Lord's initiation. So I have seen this work. I have seen this work to bring in more, and but it has to do with the brothers who are taking the lead. Of course, again, the Lord might lead me to have some saints over, to try to impart some burden into them. Actually, I've been inspired for a long time by the testimony that Brother Lee gave us. I heard him say this, but I've also read this in the years since he's been gone, that in the church life there in Chifu, that's the church he raised up in his early days in the recovery. He walked around with two lists in his pocket. One was the list of names of saints, and the other one was with a list of jobs or services. And he was always exercised, matching a saint with a task, and burdened to bring saints into service, because when they serve, they feel part of the church life. They feel like they're part of the church life. So I remember when Brother Andrew Yu was with us, he charged us very much before his departure. Give every saint a job. Give every saint a job. But that incited the leading brothers to pray this way. So in our fellowship with the leading ones here, we try to impart this burden into them, and then it would go from the leading ones to the saints. So anyway, I don't know if I answered that, but.
Amen. We're going to try to stop in the next 10 minutes, but there's a couple of questions that are coming in. And Sister Maggie Hernandez, maybe you can unmute yourself and either overflow or ask your question, and then we'll take the last two questions that are in the chat.
Okay, my name is Jose Hernandez, and I had this experience in 1993, 94. And then I have experience to take the brothers to the airport, they going to Russia. And I was new in the church life. And then I have this experience to take this brother with a small child. She was like 2 years old. And I never forget in my life, because after this year in 1994, yeah, we went to Israel. In 2014, we went to Israel, and we met the saints, the new generation of saints in Russia and Ukraine and Israel. And we have the blessings to let them know, to experience how they came to the church life, and how this brother, we took him to the airport, and it was amazing to them. And I just let you know that there's some saints in Israel, young people, they love the Lord. And the experience that we have there in Israel, it was amazing, because this generation from Israel, they love the Lord so much, and it was a blessing for us to see these fruits. They came out from Russia. That means to let us, our children, something came from here, from United States, to the seed of the preaching the gospel of the kingdom in Israel and Russia. And after so many years, it was some fruits that we saw in Israel, and we were so amazing to see all these young people loving the Lord so much.
Amen.
You can see something related about in this situation, there's nothing, and not all Russians are bad, but there's some saints over there. They love the Lord so much.
Amen. Amen, Brother Johnny. I think you asked one of the questions, so I'll let you go ahead. You can unmute yourself, brother.
Okay, praise the Lord, saints. Brother Ricky, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm well, brother. Thank you. Good to hear your voice.
Oh, it's good to see you.
Amen.
I had asked the question about having fun with the children. And so I really like to read stories to children. So a lot of times at the public schools, I get phone calls to come and read to the children because I'm animated when I read. But
Yes.
I've always felt a little reluctant to do that with our children. So I'm an older brother and I need some help. Number one, I would like to do that more with our young ones, but as a leading one, I feel my responsibility is mainly to be in the big meeting rather than with the children. So I'm just having a little conflict there and would like a little bit of fellowship.
Yes, yes. I think it might be good. Well, let me say this way. Certainly, as we're older and our responsibility for the church meetings are our top service. That's both Brother Nee and Brother Lee say that emphatically. Our number one service in the church life is the church meetings. So some of us, of course, must bear that responsibility. And so, however, two avenues in which your burden for the children could be channeled is, number one, to train younger ones, to have times of fellowship with them, where the serving saints come together and learn how to present the stories to the children. I know that where I served in the past in one of the districts, of course, I did not take the time to be in the children's meeting directly, but I spent a lot of time with the children's serving ones, and we had periodic informal perfecting sessions where we asked some experienced saints to just demonstrate for 3 or 4 minutes, how do you tell a story? Or how do you lead the singing? Because it does take, in order to inspire the children, it does take a certain something to lead the singing in a good way. And sometimes animated is good. Sometimes animated is too much. I've made that mistake when I was serving with the children early on, and the older saints perfected me not to. I got them too wild when I was serving, and so I had to get trimmed a little bit by the responsible sisters. So one way to channel the burden you have is to impart your burden to others, and then you serve through them without even being there.
Amen.
But another way is if there are neighborhood children's meetings raised up here and there, and we always encourage, even grandmas and grandpas can open their home and have neighborhood meetings where younger ones carry out the main part, but if it's in your home or in your neighborhood, for you to be there and to be reading something, it's quite spontaneous. So I think there's a couple of avenues that you could still channel your burden. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brother Ricky. Amen.
Amen, my brother.
So Ricky, I'm just going to read this last question. I think it may be answered in your other sessions, but I'll let you hear it. It was someone was asking for practical examples of what it is to till and to guard the ground.
Oh, very good. Yes, we will get into that.
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Okay. Praise the Lord, saints. I think for the sake of time, we better stop here. But I just wanted to highlight a few phrases that I really enjoyed tonight. I hope you all walk away with this. We are here. We want to produce beings of the New Jerusalem. How about that?
Amen.
Amen.
You know, my profession is not an accountant. I am here to produce beings of the New Jerusalem. Praise the Lord.
Amen.
That's a much better calling than just getting the books right. Trust me. And then the other thing I really enjoyed is we want a church life, a one-piece church life. And visitation, saints. Visitation is a great way to work out the one-piece church life. So may we all take advantage of the fact that our localities are opening up again, and the situation is changing once again, and we can be those prudently but aggressively taking the opportunity to go visit one another and even one another's kids, so that we can produce this one-piece church life.